We got Nigel coming in from the East Coast. Nigel, how's the East Coast going on? It's 3 in the afternoon, and it's a beautiful Tuesday. We just enjoyed a long Labor Day weekend. So how are you doing, my friend?
Where's the knife?
Yeah, we don't hear you. We don't hear you. So I'll start with you, son. How was school? You went to college this morning?
It was
we'll come
fantastic.
back to Nigel in just a second.
I have been absolutely loving getting to go to a place where the entire purpose is to learn. And the biggest benefit of going to a place like college rather than high school in comparison is that I've realized how much more of like an actual academic setting it is. The teachers are actually trying to teach the entire time. The students are actually trying to learn the entire time. Of course, depending on the class, but in the way that I have it for my 2 classes, it's almost that to the max. And I've been absolutely loving it because learning is a delicacy. And I love that I get to do it so frequently in this culture.
Learning is a delicacy. I like that, son. Well, I like that a lot. Nigel, you should be on. It was not a technical error. It was a human error. I'm the human that made the error. I had you on mute. And now you are unmuted.
But if you can't make the error, then you can't
everyone
make
is craving whatever it is you're about to say.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
What about now? Can you hear me now?
Now.
Yeah.
Now. Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I saw the muted thing there, so I just unclicked it.
Okay.
It happens.
So talk to us. How's it going, my friend?
It's going.
It's going every day.
I had a wonderful walk, which was nice today. It's cooling off. We're definitely starting to head into that fall period. So the weather was nice enough to walk even later in the morning, which was quite good. But I had a question for Malachi. You mentioned something last week sometime about teachers having students write their papers out, no computers, like manually. What do you think about that as a way of combating against AI?
I think it's quite short term. It's the kind of thing that if you look in the future, it's not really very useful. You can type so much quicker than you can write. Yes, it works now for the most part, but it makes it really difficult. And if you say, okay, well, there's not enough time in class, so they can just do it at home, then they can still do the exact same thing. They can still, quote unquote, cheat using AI. Just then they would be able to write it down on the paper. And then that just makes it so they waste more time. And then they try and go quicker and whatever it is. I think that it's probably not a very long-term solution. And as a whole, us as humans, I believe being long-term as a thinker is much more valuable and smart than just trying to think in the short term. Like, oh, this fixes our problem. No, it doesn't. Oh, this will make sure that we don't have to deal with this. Does it? I mean, when you look at things in even just a month or even just a tomorrow on like a human level, like last night, I had Taco Bell for the first time in a long time. And oh boy, I should have thought of the long term when I did that because my tummy did not. And that's just an example, of course. It's a little stupid, but it's so true. I should have thought of the long term because now I am remembering where I felt like in that moment. And it's just those kinds of moments where deciding to look at something and identify it as a problem and then think, okay, how do we actually want to solve this? What does the solution really look like? And then strive to make that solution instead of pretend the problem isn't there and try and avoid the problem.
There's wisdom in that. Perfect.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning, bro.
It sure was a hot weekend for all of us here in Santa Cruz.
It was beautiful.
It was easy to melt. I guess it was the hottest recorded day in Oakland, and it was the hottest day in San Francisco in the last year. So the heat was serious in Capitola Village.
I wonder what it was in Death Valley, or is that too far away from us?
I think that's the hottest place in the world, Death Valley.
Death Valley is the hottest place in the world.
Well.
It's got a good name.
Death Valley. Yeah, you don't want to hang out there for too long. So what I want to, this is Beachside Tech Talk for everyone that's listening. And we like to talk about primarily advanced automation technology. Usually this is around Web3, which is crypto, blockchain, etc. It's also oftentimes AI, as you might imagine, robotics, things of this nature. Each day we usually focus on one industry. I want to do something a bit different today. We weren't in the studio yesterday. It was Dan and Nigel from Friday that we played again on the radio. So if you were tuning in on Friday and Monday, then it was
you got to get even more of what they said.
Yeah. And so what I want to talk about today is change. Even good change can often be challenging. Just even like missing work on a Monday, that might sound like a great change, but there also are just things that come with that. Very few things cause change as much as technology. AI has been changing industries day after day after day. Crypto, in some regards, has changed a lot of industries, certainly finance and some other things around supply chain management. Robotics is changing manufacturing, and it will continue to do so across other industries. Change can be super, super challenging for people. And so what I want to talk with you guys about today was how do we deal with change? So this might be more of a philosophical conversation that we have today. How do we deal with change? And, what can we do to better manage the changes that come our way, whether we like them or not? So, Nigel, let me throw it over to you. What comes to mind when I say, hey, let's have an open dialogue, a philosophical dialogue about change today, how we deal with it, how we should deal with it. And let's also talk about specifically how it impacts us through technology.
The first thing I think about with change is being prepared. If you're well prepared or better prepared, change or adaptability, being flexible is always easier. Not necessarily easy, but easier. If you're forward thinking, succession planning, business resiliency, disaster recovery, looking at the competitive landscape, you do put yourself in a better position. And with AI, I'm super optimistic because we have the tools, the processing power, the data to really start taking a better look at history and making some informed decisions about that.
What's your take on change, Dan? How do you imagine dealing with change personally, and how about on a broader level in terms of society?
I think that change is going to happen regardless. It shows itself through time as it is. I feel there's a 20-year generational thing that kind of happens where things evolve and then they get forgotten about and kind of change again. If we're talking philosophical, I think that the best thing you can do is just kind of sit back and tighten your bootstrap and kind of hold on, because these things move at a speed that you were just not used to. So, for instance, you find you're using a tool today, a digital tool of some kind, and it becomes outdated. Within a year, very few things are staying relevant after a year or so of time. It can be a big to-do of the day, but it just kind of fizzles out. But I think that the best thing that we can do is definitely, as maybe Nigel said, is to definitely prepare. You are going to do your best when you are prepared your best. So I think that being patient, having fortitude and a good frame of mind for wherever your morals and where you're at with these digital tools. I think there's a big wall between monetization and truthfulness. So I feel like it's either things are out there being pushed for a monetary value. So we're going to make money regardless of, try not to hurt people physically, I guess, be the best way of putting it. Or are you really trying to build something that's, evergreen or long lasting, or you're trying to help someone, or money's not really the huge issue for it. You know that something you're building, the money will come if it's a tool that people are going to use and adopt. But the most important part is to actually partake your knowledge or whatever you're trying to project build. And I would say open source is a good way to go if you're building something. After all, you're building something, you're not making any money at it just yet anyway. So maybe an open source system might kind of be the way to go, to show your transparency, to show what you are building, and then that will show as the build happens. It will be people will be able to see that build. So I think that the best that we can do is take it with a grain of salt, be prepared as much as you can, and the things that come by and happen in the speed of light like they are, don't get too worried about it. Stay grounded. Remember, the most important thing is going to be your life. It's your physical health. It's your mind. It's the people you love. It's the people who you engage with. It's not going to be the digital world of robotics and automation that we would have to fear. I would think. We are always going to be in control. I don't ever have this fear-mongering day of when technology just gets smart enough to to make humans go night-night forever. But yeah, I think we're talking philosophically, so it's just kind of what's ever on your mind. But the preparedness, the agility, learning skills is a great thing to do, and being the best person you can. Again, we always we come here and do educational shows and stuff, and I think that that's important too. If you ever were able to teach one person something besides your children, I think that you've really made an imprint.
I have plenty of thoughts on my mind that I could talk with about change. Plenty of things just from this morning with conversations I've had. But I think it's more beneficial if we kind of dive further into the whole concept of open source. Because open source is something that is seemingly very, very useful. But then it's like, how do you get that to happen practically on a human level? It's really difficult. Like, just I think a few days ago, I was talking with one of my friends about how when a group of people is given all the same resources and the goal is just to progress, then they unify and they progress. But when you introduce this niche and smaller amount of something new, resource-wise, it's like then people kind of lose the unity because one person wants it all, or two people want it all, and then once everyone else finds out that they've been hiding it, then like just people being people, and then the unity that used to be amazing kind of falls apart. And so it's really difficult to have something like the concept of open source genuinely work. And so I kind of just want to hear you guys talk about how you think open source could be something that the world changes to be using all the time, and what that future could practically look like. Because people still want to live in a capitalist world, at least here, and they still want that kind of life where when you work harder and you make something, you get to own it and you get to make the profit. But something like open source is in a way kind of different. And so can you guys just dialogue and speak about this on the concept of change?
Well, I can share what I experienced at Hedera, which ties into the whole idea of technology and change. So for those that are not familiar with Hedera, you might be familiar with something called HBAR, HBAR, and that's the utility token of the Hedera distributed ledger. So Hedera is part of the Web3 AI global ecosystem. So when you look at what they went through, they built a proprietary technology they called Hashgraph. It was a better approach to a blockchain. And if you're interested, you could easily find out that information. But that's not the point of the conversation. The point is open source and change. So Hedera's founders invented something very, important. It was so important that Google, IBM, Boeing, and a bunch of the biggest companies in the world became Hedera's partner. And they're the ones that are the validators, and they're the ones that run the distributed ledger. They're the ones that run the public blockchain. Now, Manson Lehman, they owned it. And they've been wildly successful together in the past. They met in the military. They went to school, and Lehman got a doctorate in AI way before that was even a thing. It was called machine learning back then. And so they had done a lot of big government contracts. They've done a lot of stuff with AI. They did a lot of stuff with Web3. And they invented this incredible approach to public ledgers. Basically, the board asked them, would you be willing to make it open source so everybody in the world can benefit from what you've invented, and that we're not the only ones? Because if we're the only ones that do it this way, potentially we won't be able to get a market for it, no matter how good it is. And you see this with Elon Musk when he created the Tesla car. There was no charging stations. Nobody were buying electric cars. They all thought it was a joke. There's no infrastructure whatsoever for anything around the batteries and all the things that are necessary for the Tesla empire to run today. And so he open sourced everything on his own, because he figured, if I open source everything, I'll start getting my quote unquote competitors to collaborate with me and to innovate in this arena. So that's what Manson Lehman decided to do. And basically Hedera bought their technology, so that their company bought the technology from the founders. The founders released it, made it open source. They took it so serious that they hired a chief open source officer, a guy named Andrew, out of Colorado. And he and I were working together when I was there helping Hedera with their transition. And I definitely learned a lot about change, right? Hedera went through from one company run by the founders to 5 organizations: the Founders Lab, the main corporation, and then 3 foundations. That's massive change. They went from private proprietary technology nobody in the world could use or copy, and then they open sourced it. And that's a massive change. And then the change that enacted across the companies like the Googles and IBMs and Boeings is they start to implement this, and they start to say, oh, it's not Hedera's anymore, it's ours too. So now IBM starts having 250 different Solidity developers developing stuff on the Hashgraph protocol because they took ownership of it, right? So there's all of this tension around change, but ultimately, when we see the most innovative technologies in the world, things like Tesla's electric car, things like Hedera's Hashgraph, which is a elevation to the Web3
as well as
technology.
the QR code, the person who made it also made it completely
open source. And again, would the QR code even be used or even known if the person
probably wouldn't have if someone tried to make money off of it.
So there's a lot to be said for, technology companies have to be willing to enact change themselves, not just force change upon society. Any thoughts on that? Because I don't know if I've really shared that part of my experience at Hedera, the whole experience of going from private, proprietary, fully owned, not open sourcing your code, to making it fully open source, sharing your full code, letting anybody in the world do anything they want with it.
When I think about open source, the question is all open source created equal? Like, how much of it is really open? How much of a commitment is there to true adoption? Because to me, if you want someone to learn something, it's not, oh, I put it out on GitHub. It's walking them through it and making sure they understand. So in a more specific way, are these open source implementations being pushed like in schools, in universities? I'm talking about even at like a high school, maybe even middle school level, depending on how seasoned the school are, maybe private schools. But is it that level? Or is it only for the IBMs and the Microsofts and the Googles of the world that have those resources? Is it democratized, or is it gate kept based on resources? That's the real question.
Seems like it's back to the monetary values of things. if it's learning, education, philosophical, stuff like that, they much easier to open source. Health information, those kinds of things, mental coaching, that kind of stuff. But anything that's product related, really tough to open source that stuff. There, and then when something is dropped or released, or it's new, and they really rely on the company will really rely on that unveiling.
It seems,
and open source is not going to win the day for them when it comes to something like that. And if it's a product that's tangible, physical, or something in your hand that's usable, kind of, you're on a time limit, you know what I mean? Unless you're constantly upgrading and making it better and better. So that's another thing, you build something that's physical, hence not a coaching class, or not something that's, a psychiatric or something like that. You're very limited on time, and if you're doing it to give it away, then that's great. Open source is not even a question, but really hard to build a physical, tangible product and then say we're going to open source it if we expect to make any kind of monetary values off of it.
It seems to me like the reason that it worked for Tesla and Elon Musk to make it so that those kinds of things were open sourced was because he had something that did not exist. No infrastructure, and he needed the infrastructure for anything to work. And that was the main reason why it worked, at least from my perspective. But do you think there is any other way that open source can be the best option for some kind of group or company or product or whatever it is?
It's up to the innovator to decide if open source is the best option. I've considered open sourcing our entire development at Attention Live. So Attention Live is super proprietary. Nobody's built anything like our technology. Our technology is built upon a innovation that we patented. It's a massive global innovation that lots and lots of people have now developed these things, as we kind of thought of the idea about 10 years ago. I've thought about open sourcing everything, but instead what we decided to do was to containerize everything, which allows anyone to work on different parts of our product. So we're kind of going about it as as like the best of both worlds. So in terms of what we do for Attention Live, it's like up to the leaders to decide on that. So for every different thing in innovation, in terms of what should happen with this, the question is, the sole decision maker or the group of decision makers have to decide what's best for us, for our customers, for our clients, for our partners, for our investors, if you have investors, and then you have to make the wisest decision. It's not always that simple. We'll be back again here at Beachside Tech Talk in just a moment after our commercial break to talk more about change, how we deal with it, and the impact technology makes upon us. Hi, Ted. Come on back.
Hello.
I see you're there. Welcome to the party.
I see I'm here.
You're so funny. Hi.
Hi.
So we're live. I figured we could say hi to you. Let's test out Opal. You ready?
No, not quite yet.
Let me know when you are.
Momentarily.
So our conversation today, Ted, is about change, the impact technology makes upon us, the challenge of change, even if change is good. Maybe a little philosophical today. We'll have two different topics tomorrow and Thursday. Today's topic is change, and then we'll go back to regular programming on Monday. But I wanted to take advantage of the fact we're not together on Monday, and switch things up a little bit and have different open dialogues the next 3 days. So today's change, And the basic premise is technology requires a very, very challenging amount of change. Each company, and not just individuals, each government, federal governments, not just local states or cities or towns or neighborhoods, everyone in every type of organization has to grapple with change. The tech causes just crazy challenges when it comes to change. So anyway, that's our topic today. Welcome to the party. Let me know when you want to test out the mic.
I am ready. Steady.
Okay.
I am ready.
you
I
go.
am ready.
Yep, you're good. I hear you. We go live in a minute and a half. Anything you want to say to all the party people on the internet?
Hi, party people on the internet.
Oh man, they feel so greeted by you.
Yeah. Change
That
is
is honestly,
important,
that's what the
man.
internet's waiting for all day. They just
And
want
we're
to.
so glad you're following us, and keep following us. And I do have a question. No, maybe I shouldn't ask this live. I guess I won't ask this live. I'll put this in the text. Yeah. So hello, party people on the internet. We're talking about change. Yeah, change is important. Changing places.
You switch cameras.
There's a song that I'm thinking of. Changing places. Put yourself
They are
to
a
the
change.
ground. Capitalize on this good fortune. Some things will bring you down. Who sings that song? Changing places. There's an app that'll tell you who sings that song. It's
Shazam.
from the 80s, 90s pop, I think.
Let's turn. If you don't need Wi-Fi, turn it off because.
When are we going to talk about the impact of technology in 80s and 90s pop? When the synthesizer really came in. Was that a good thing? What about the electric guitar?
Everybody
Is
loves
that
the
a
electric
good
guitar.
thing? I think everyone loves the electric guitar. I think Mozart would have
Just
loved
not-
an electric guitar. At least
right.
that's what the death metal
You go,
people would
buddy.
have said.
Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk. My name is Ian Utilli. I'm here with my co-hosts, Ted, Nigel, Malachi, and Dan. I'm going to open up this segment with a story. One of the humans that is most well-known in the world, because 3 or more religions kind of look back at this man, a man named Abraham. I used to sing in church when I was a little kid. Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. So through Isaac comes the Jews or Hebrews, the Israelites. Eventually there was a break off when Jesus came to town 2,000 years ago. And now the Christians and the Catholics are there. And then through Ishmael, Abraham's other son, comes a lot of the Muslim, Islamic world. So Abraham went through a pretty unique amount of change. And this is why I bring up Abraham. He went through change himself. He enacted change. He had to have vision for change. And a lot of the things that he was used to changed as he went through his story. I don't claim to be an expert on Abraham's life. I certainly wasn't there. So who knows what really happened, but based on the things that I've heard. Abraham was a man that lived in a place, and then basically he got some sort of audible voice or something of that nature. And then he leaves his home and he goes out and he becomes a wanderer basically for the rest of his life. That's a massive change. Everything that he was used to, everything that was kind of the rhythms of his parents, his grandparents, his neighbors, his cousins, his nieces and nephews, whatever rhythms he had, those rhythms were interrupted. He was an old man, and apparently God spoke to him one way or another and said, you're going to be the father of many nations. Your descendants will be like the sand on the seashore, like the stars in the sky. And here is this old man named Abraham and his wife, Sarah, both of them way past childbirth age, and apparently they're going to be the father of many nations. And of course, now as we look back, I don't know, maybe 3,000, 4,000 years back, we see, oh wow, that was kind of the case. Look at the billions of people that basically consider Abraham to be a father, if not biologically, spiritually. Now, the reason I mention that is it's something that everyone understands. Most people can understand that there's a guy named Abraham, or at least as the story tells us, and he went through massive change because he lived a certain way, and then he was called out of that way of life into a new way of life. And then he faced all types of constant changes as he was a nomad. And today, a lot of humans live as nomads. It wasn't that long ago that most people worked a job, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We got that 9 to 5, that rings a bell for everyone. And you show up and you clock in and you clock out, and you do it 5 or maybe 6 days a week. And all the rhythms are around just keeping your job, keeping your boss happy, keeping the company, going and doing what's required to maintain. And now we live in a world that's very nomadic. A lot of people that once had stability, now they feel like, oh man, things have changed. COVID changed everything. Now I got to work from home and deal with the dog. Now whatever it may be. Now I got to work from the coffee shop and deal with the barista. And so there's a lot of change associated in this world. And a lot of it doesn't just come from technology. We're dealing with change just based on the impact of health in society. Therefore, my launching pad for this conversation is personal change. What I want to talk with the four of you about right now, and then we'll transition to something more kind of humanity and tech in a moment. But what type of changes has technology brought to the four of you, maybe this year, maybe this decade, that have caused you to struggle, even if it's a positive change, even if there was a change that allowed you to make more money, but it still was challenging, if there was a change that allowed you to save time or be happier? How have you dealt with change on a personal level? Because there are many ways that we have all dealt with massive change this year, from AI tools, the last 5 years, from being locked down and, told to stay in our homes, and because of the virus or the cold or the pandemic, whatever you want to call it. Then, we've gone through all kinds of change around finance, right? It was like everything was just very simple, paper dollars. Now we have all the credit cards. Now we have the crypto options. So back to the four of you. So Ted, why don't I start with you? Talk to us about how you personally deal with change. And it's cool if you want to be a bit philosophical today. This is kind of a break in our traditional programming, but maybe try to focus on, is there technology that has caused change in your life? And how are you dealing with it? And how do you think it should be dealt with? So take it away.
Philosophical about change. I think I'm like everyone. I'm not sure how well I deal with change. On one hand, I'm very forward looking, so I'm the guy instigating change. But on the other hand, when you're knocked out of your rhythm, it takes you a while to get into your new rhythm. Let's see what's happening right now immediately. Let's talk in my professional area. I'm in nonprofit world. I lead a nonprofit. I'm the board of a couple others, and they're facing the results of technological changes that are hitting society. Maybe it's not directly technological, but this is all tied together. We have technological advances, but we have this massive advance in knowledge that, we've been on a hockey stick, maybe it's not a hockey stick, it's an exponential curve, and we're learning more and more things. Change is happening, and those are disrupting society, disrupting finances. We have an election change where the country moved from one side to another, and that's affecting particularly nonprofits, how they're funded, and also the demographic they're serving. The border is on the news, and the immigration crisis, and we have polarized views of how to deal with it. one change that one place that it got very personal. This is news I just heard about. One of the nonprofits I'm on the board of, Love Never Fails, they help victims of human trafficking. And we have seen that because of all these changes, the demand for their services has increased, which is sad. We want to see the demand for the services decrease. And we're hopeful in some areas. But we've also seen the economic factors that are really disrupting the business model. It's very difficult to get funding through public sources, through government grants now. And so we're having to pivot to different sources of funding, to private grants. But one way that hit this small nonprofit, we had a home for youth. We have 7 homes altogether. One of them was for youth, and in the county it was the only house, I believe it was Alameda County. It was the only home for youth who are victims of human trafficking there. There's services for youth 16 and older, and we'll still be able to do that, but this was the only home, as far as I understand, for we could take 11 and 12 years old, and it was amazing. Some of the young people we helped are incredible. One just won an award and spoke in front of legislators, and she had been trafficked when she was very young. She came into our home when she was 11 or 12. We had to shut that down because of the way the economics are changing, and that's very, very expensive, and we just couldn't afford those resources and had to put it into another place. So how are we dealing with change? Facing the disappointment of shutting down the only youth home, and hoping that we'll be able to come back up to it and reopen it again. But at least we're still able to help the 16 and older youth, and we're praying for a solution there. But that's a sad story of change, and hopefully it'll have a happy ending in the end. But right now we're just having to deal with that.
Have you looked into the grants that are available? You can almost write your own grants for things nowadays, dude. If you're involved in an NGO like you are, that's, I would say, successful as Love Never Fails. Maybe there's
we've been successful at writing grants.
Okay.
But the success rate we were going up in our success rate as we got better at learning how to write the grants and choose the right ones and find what's out there.
Right.
But then it started to drop, even though we were getting better, because the competition increased and the funding got tighter. So that's a big challenge. It's complicated. It'd be a whole couple hours to dive into why this house had to be shut down. Now we still have 6 homes, so it's just one that we're shutting down so we can reallocate those resources to places where we need to use them.
Right.
So I think change as a concept can be such a massive thing in people's lives. Yeah.
When you talk about change right now, I want you to make it personal.
Okay.
Not about anything except for you. How are you personally dealing with change in your life this week, this month, this year? How are you struggling with change? How are you overcoming the struggles that you face with change? 100%. Just for this, just keep it only personal on change.
So I can wrap this up of how I'm personally doing this. This was a big blow because as on the board, we wanted to save this, but we couldn't. So what am I doing? Letting it go, releasing it, taking a deep breath, and getting ready for the next fight.
Prepared. Good job.
I actually want to listen to Nigel. I think Nigel has something really important to say.
Everyone wants to listen to Nigel, bro. You're not alone in that. This is basically the Nigel show.
This is Nigel and Friends. Welcome, everybody.
That's what we should call it, Nigel and Friends.
That's going to make a great clip. Thank you.
Should I be thing 4? Welcome back
I do
to
have
Nigel and
something to say.
Friends.
You all are too kind. I love you all. So change that's personal. Well, I had to learn how to walk again. That was interesting.
Right.
So then had a worse knee. So then I had to switch it up a little bit. But long story short, walking with a walker for a while, but continuing to walk and being grateful to have done things when both my knees were in good shape.
Yeah.
You know, and it's truly made me grateful and aware. You know, who knew going to the gym and not, you know, icing or wrapping or taking it easy could be such a big thing. So that was a physical change that's still going on. It's getting better. But the more technological change has been in slowing down and specifically discernment. Because of the way AI is, I find myself asking more and better questions.
Good
and
job.
not being as accepting of on the surface answers or answers that are showing themselves to be far less than the capability that's there. I find myself asking why a lot more, and not to be combative or difficult, but just to be up to par in terms of potential. Like, why not? Just seems to make more sense in the environment that we're in now. We have a lot of capabilities. And I said this before, we have the opportunity to solve a lot of problems if we just lean in a little bit more. Because the technology is there. I just think that the application needs to be to meet it, to harmonize with it so that we can actually get the best out of what we have and move a little bit further away from what we can't do and then figure out some of the options of what we can do with the resources that we have and the technology we have and the cooperation that we are capable of. So those are the areas where I find myself wrestling with change, optimistically, but still wrestling.
So much happens when you realize in a moment that something that you used to have, you don't have anymore, and you realize it so much more. Like if I just all of a sudden lost a limb, I would be constantly thinking about, oh shoot, dang it, man, I can't grab that anymore. Oh, well, okay. It's like for most of my life, you just always grab it. But then all of a sudden, now you can't grab it. And I think sometimes that kind of realization can kind of snap you back into place and realize and kind of promote yourself to be more thankful over what there is and what you are privileged to be able to have.
To spark the end of this conversation, I'll bring up another thing about Abraham. So his wife, Sarah, was unable to have kids, and he and his wife were like, okay, well, what should we do? So his wife says, here, take my handmaiden, which was, I guess, a common thing back at that time, and sleep with her. And, then at least that way we can fulfill our destiny. And that's how they had Ishmael. Then eventually they had Isaac. And as you might imagine, there was tension between Sarah and Hagar, at least from what we are told. And Sarah basically says to Abraham, like, Hagar and Ishmael are out of here. I don't want them around anymore. So in this case, Abraham faced change that was forced upon him. I can't imagine Abraham didn't want to be around his oldest son. I can't imagine Abraham would have chosen to not continue on with the two women and the two children and having a family. But his wife said, that's it. Like, she must go and he must go. So that's a very significant change. And I think all of us face change from loved ones, or at least we have loved ones demand change from us. Like, you need to change this. You're drinking too much. You're not working enough. You've gained too much weight. You're out playing and exercising too much. It's always something. You're doing this too much. You're not doing this enough. You must change. You won't change yourself. I will force change upon you. So this is another area of change that comes. And oftentimes with technology, we have, children, parents, especially employers, clients that are demanding change. We may not want to use AI, but now all of a sudden our boss says, you don't have a choice. We may not want to use crypto or accept crypto as a business, but our clients say, well, I just want to pay you with Bitcoin or with USDC. And so other people are forcing their will upon us, our business, our employment, our life. So with that in mind, as we have the last few minutes of this segment, how do you guys think about dealing with change that is, demanded upon your life from other people, even if they have good intent, or if they don't? So for me, I have a tendency to be cool with change as long as I'm wanting, like, as long as I thought of it. Like, if I thought of the change, like, I want to use this AI tool, then I'm totally happy about giving it a shot. But if somebody else tries to force their will upon me and tries to Sarah me and make me get rid of my Hagar and my Ishmael, that's super tough for me. I find myself really, really struggling with other people forcing change upon my life. And this probably even go to government and things of that nature. So how about you guys? Do you find that when change is forced upon you by a person, that it is more challenging to enact that change with a good attitude?
I think the answer is, of course. We all struggle with that. I'm a youngest child. So if you look at the psychology of youngest children, they're flexible because you're always the smallest. No one ever consults you, so you learn how to be flexible. One thing that I've learned when change is forced upon me, if I'm able to move and shift myself to the place where I feel like I have agency, like, if Ian comes up with a good idea and now I've got to change because Ian's mandating change. If I'm able to process it and internalize it and say, okay, I didn't come up with that idea, but that's a very good idea. So now I'm going to come up with it. And this is the process I came up with it. And then as soon as I have agency, I learned recently that that's actually scientifically proven out. If you have agency, change is easier.
That is true. We'll be back again to talk more about this topic in just a moment. All right, Internet, we're going to take a 10-minute break. I'm going to show you a video that was reason myself in the Unleashed Summit in Mongolia. I had to have a translator. When I speak on stage, I've spoke 1,000 times, very rarely with a translator. This time I had to have a translator. So that's an example of change. I had to deal with the change of saying one sentence at a time. So it's just kind of a bunch of cut up moments of this experience that we had for a few days. But I think you might enjoy it and give everybody a chance to take a moment. We'll be right back.
I am so glad to see everyone here at the beginning of our Unleashed Summit for 2024. My name is Scott Oman, and I am one of the speakers here at the conference, but I am also a board member of ALDM, which is the organizer and supporter of the conference today.
After today, you might be able to. We found out that children were not living because they didn't have 24-hour care. Kids with his problem need to be fed by hand every hour and a half for about 6 months. But the staff did not have enough people to feed them 24 hours a day. So we checked with our friend. He encouraged us to ask the government to let us create a special room and let us find nurses and doctors to give these children 24-hour care. I'm a factory owner. This has nothing to do with manufacturing. Many people would say, stay focused. Do what you're supposed to do. It's a distraction. It didn't feel like a distraction. This is the first child that lived because we had that room.
Би ийм эмэгтэй боловч яг амьд үлдсэн анхны мөх маань юм. Энэ өөрөө нээсэн учраас нүгт амьд үлдсэн.
My daughter adopted him.
Миний охин өргөж авсан.
So he is my grandson.
Миний ачуу болсон тийм.
My 5th country this month that my wife and I have been to. This is my wife, Riza. We just found this beautiful dress downstairs. Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk in general about innovation and creativity today. Let me start with this. I've been watching lots of documentaries about Genghis Khan. I'm fascinated, I always have been fascinated by leaders, whether leaders did good things or bad things. I've always been fascinated with leadership. I think Jesus was the greatest leader of all time. Jesus said, "Come to me like a child." Children don't think about their mom and dad's identity. Children are free. They're free to dream. They're free to have vision and belief and possibility and hope. And if you want to do great things as an entrepreneur, if you want to be a world-changing innovator, I want you to repeat this after me. God is in a good mood. God created you to be creative. You are innovative. Be like Jesus. Break the rules. Do what is in your heart. All right. Yay. Yay for all of you. Yay that you're here with us right now. This will be a little bit of a different workshop on purpose. I'm purposefully making this different than normal workshops. So Riza, can you tell them what we did last weekend?
Had an event in Manila, Philippines, where I actually come from. So we invited different leaders and content creators like doing TikTok, Instagram. And we, what we did is also same here, like this. We created a big circle. And we have our town hall different topics that we discussed. So we talked about business, education, politics, and a lot more.
Do what you think is right. Be authentic. Be transparent. Be honest. Be true to yourself.
In our life, we have different approach and we have different ways on how are we going to share.
So wherever we stand up, we're going to wrap up now. I want to say one last thing before we wrap up. So when you think about the future of faith and the future of tech, find a community. Don't listen to the people in charge. Use technology for the good of people. This is your invitation. Thank you for coming to the workshop today. Thank you. Did you enjoy it?
Super.
Was it super or super duper?
Super duper because they thought I'm Mongolian.
They did. Everywhere we go, they think that you're native.
They're talking to me Mongolian.
Home of Schoolhouse Radio. The views
Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk here at 1340 AM. KOMY, home of Schoolhouse Radio. My name is Ian Utility. I'm here with my four co-hosts, Malachi, Dan, Nigel, and Ted. My wife Reese is with us. We have our producer, Kristen, and the team here at the radio station. This 1947 has incredible history. Local community radio. So very, very important. And of course, we get the benefit of being able to broadcast this globally through the social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and LinkedIn. So I'm going to start with a story. Not too long ago, there was an entire, and this happened to the population, there's an entire population that was enslaved. So it started off not that way. the Israelites, Hebrews, made it over to Egypt. Everything was good until they started having too many babies. The Pharaoh became uncomfortable, enslaved them, and it became quite an issue. There was a little boy. They tried to kill all the little boys. There's a little boy named Moses, and Moses' parents hid him, put him in the river, and the Pharaoh's daughter picked up Moses. And you've maybe seen movies about this. Maybe you heard about this in some religious context.
I thought it was Pharaoh's sister.
It might have been Pharaoh's sister. Might have been Pharaoh's sister.
Anyways,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'm pretty sure it's Pharaoh's mother.
Ted just wants to be argumentative. So back to the story. Thanks, Ted. Back to the story. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's house and kills an Egyptian, apparently when he was about 40 years old, and flees Egypt and goes into the wilderness, meets his wife, has a family. I understand from what we've been told, there's a burning bush involved, holy ground. And next thing you know, Moses is sent back to Egypt to free the Israelites, the Hebrews. Getting to the point of why I brought this up, because today we're talking about change and the change that comes through technology. So Moses leads the people out of Egypt, and it's a wild story full of all kinds of, tough to believe miracles. So if you're a believer in miracles, then the story is probably easy to absorb and think is legit. If you're not much of a miracle oriented person, you might think that, who knows what it was really like. But nevertheless, the Israelites and Hebrews apparently got out of Egypt, and they're in the desert. So they so badly wanted to be out of slavery. They'd cry out to one another. They'd cry, oh man, the Pharaoh is killing our kids. The Pharaoh is making us build these pyramids along with the aliens. The Pharaoh does all these bad things. Such a terrible place. We're enslaved. We want to be free. Oh God, let us be free. And so they're praying, they're crying out, oh, we want freedom. We want freedom. Oh, can't we have that change? We just want to be free. They get out into the desert, and in not too long, they start complaining. We want to go back to Egypt. We want to be slaves again.
We want to be slaves.
We don't. We had everything there at our disposal.
We had everything that we needed.
Out here in the desert, all I'm getting is scorpions and
all the
sticks.
infrastructure was there.
Eventually, apparently, there was a miracle where they were given bread, manna, which stood. I guess the definition of manna is, what is this? So all of a sudden there's this sustenance on the ground, and all the Jews are saying, what's this? Manna. Then they start complaining about the miraculous food that's delivered to them. And then they get quail. There's a cloud by day and a fire by night. Obviously the story is extremely supernatural, not of a natural state. But one thing that's very natural is that no matter how good the change is in our life, no matter how good the change is in society, humans have a tendency to want to go back to slavery rather than deal with the hardship of freedom. I don't know why that is, but I'm going to bring up a technology that I see this in all the time. The technology of cryptography, which we know as cryptocurrency, blockchain, Web3, metaverse, NFTs, distributed ledgers, etc. This is a very, very positive change. This is the technology built for the people, by the people. This is the technology that gets us off of dependency on a government and a fiat currency. It's the technology that allows us to have transparency. This is freedom. Okay, Web3 arguably brings humanity, businesses, governments, a measure of freedom that they did not have before. If you imagine that we were once enslaved to an old financial system, we're now set free into a new financial system. However, the change is hard. It is hard to figure out how to open an account. It is hard to figure out how to buy crypto. It is hard to figure out how to have a wallet that you manage with your private keys. It is hard to get money into that wallet. It's hard to get money out of that wallet. Everything about it is like the desert. So even though we once were enslaved to an old financial system, and we now are set free into a new financial system, even though that's the case, it's a desert right now. We are not in the promised land of what cryptography promises will give us one day. We are in the desert, out of slavery of the old financial system, heading toward the promised land of a new financial system. But we are in the desert. And how many times have we seen our friends that open a wallet, figure it out, do some crypto trading, buy some NFTs, jump into a metaverse, feel like they own their little slice of the internet, feel like they have autonomy for the first time, like, oh, I'm out of slavery and I'm heading toward the promised land. And then, Reese and I were just talking this last night, how many of our friends have abandoned their Web3 efforts and gone back into quote unquote Web 2? How many of our friends have abandoned the pursuit of the freedom that crypto gives people financially and gone back to the slavery of the way that things have been done financially? And so I mentioned that story because what I want to talk with you guys about right now, based on the topic of change and the way that technology brings change, is what is our personal experience or our community experience where we have seen really positive change. AI set someone free from the slavery of a lack of knowledge into the freedom of all knowledge is accessible. AI set somebody free from not knowing how to get out of a situation or not knowing how to fix a problem. And now they were enslaved into being stuck, and now they're set free. But somehow, some way, the change became challenging for them, and then they backtrack. They go, never mind, I'm not going to use that AI tool anymore. I'm going back to Google. I don't care that Google uses my data against me. Never mind, I'm going to abandon that new Web3 social media platform where I own all my content. I'm going to go back and start posting on TikTok or YouTube again. I don't care if their terms and conditions say they own everything. I'd rather be a slave on TikTok than a free woman or a free man on Farcast or whatever new approach there is. So this is something that we see. It's something that pulls on us. How many entrepreneurs got out of the quote unquote slavery of a 9-to-5 job into the quote unquote freedom of entrepreneurship, only to say, this desert is way too hard. I'm on a death march to a life camp. I'm not making it to a life camp. I'm turning around going back to the quote unquote slavery of a job. This happens all the time. Technology forces change that is good upon us. Technology has forced medical change that is good for us, financial change that is good for us, information change that is good for us. Yet, because we are in the desert transitioning on a bridge from what was to what could be, so often we find ourselves discouraged, looking back. And the final thing I'll say is, looking back and longing for what once was is a dangerous thing. There's a reason why the rear view mirror in a car is so small and the windshield is so big. There's something important about looking forward. The story of, the woman that looked back and became a pillar of salt, right? Because she longed for what once was, no matter how bad it was. It was known. It was comfortable. So I'm done with my little monologue story rant. And I'd love to hear from you guys and what you think about positive change that's quote unquote good for us, but because we're stuck in the desert of transformation, because we're currently the caterpillar in the cocoon, not yet a butterfly, and we say to ourselves, I don't want to be in this cocoon. I don't like this cocoon. I don't want to wait to be a butterfly. I want to go back to crawling on my belly again. I don't want to fly like a butterfly. I want to crawl because I was used to that. And so I think there's something very significant about this reality. And I don't think we talk about it a lot. And I think it's worth a conversation. So what are your thoughts, my brother? I'm looking at you. Any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, you got me kind of at a loss. I'm trying not to make it so much of a hard thing. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to do what you need to do as you need to. Think that there's good and bad stories about the transitioning of digital. You were mentioning, why we're in a desert of Web3, AI transitioning. we are, but we aren't. Are we really? We're not. I know myself have learned so much in the last year, 2 years. And I know people are going to learn as they see fit. So I think that the world does move fast, but for people who are in a working world per se, like you were mentioning, a 9 to 5, that's a pretty heavy day right there. You know, there's usually some traveling involved with that, back and forth. Lunchtime, you know, by the end of the day, you're talking about at least half of it gone. You know, it's a 12-hour day, not an 8-hour schedule kind of thing. So, and then you've got your life, that you've got significant other, children, depending on what you're doing. These things are going to take up the most of that time, and I think that's the biggest wall that's going to happen. A lot of people aren't fortunate enough to, you know, be able to come into a radio show and have a tech talk, or even be part of a tech talk, and that's the great thing of why this is here. Because until these talks happen, and until people feel comfortable, you know, the adoption, the transparency, and these words we use a lot are very necessary. But it's just basically, to me, it's a matter of comfortability. And until people start feeling comfortable, it happens just like raising a child. You do not see your child grow from 24 inches to 5.5 feet. That's quite a big change. You know, it's 3-4 times the size of what you remember when they first came to be with you, and you never saw the thing grow because of the adoption of that process. That's the adoption I'm talking about. It's not going to be seen overnight. But if we look now, like we're talking, and we go back, 4 or 5 years, or even a decade, we see a definite transformation. You know, the Web3 is out there. There are a lot of people who own digital wallets, but I believe the masses and most people don't. You basically were gracious enough to touch on these things are not comfortable areas. You mentioned the word wallet. You mentioned the word currencies, dollars. People, unless they're very well off to do, those words are very sacred to them. That's like, bedtime, night, family talking, this is very, very sacred. So to play around with a digital area like that, it's a bummer that there's couple things right off the top of my head that have been connotated in the wrong way, I think. NFT is, I don't know where those 3 words came from, but whoever, I mean, I understand that's a technical definition of something.
Like MP3,
it should be
VHS. If there's different words that we start adopting also, besides an NFT, a digital record, a receipt, you start kind of filling it in a different way. I think that's going to help with the adoption. And then the other one is, again, wallet and money. You start mentioning these things and it's a joke until people have someone, like in my case, and I'm sure in a lot of people's cases, it was a friend. Wasn't a guy on a radio show who had mentioned it, and it wasn't a TV ad or a social media ad that had me get a digital wallet, because no thanks, but no thanks. It was my friend or my family member who had one, and who has some cryptocurrency in it and has a little bit of knowledge in that offered to help me out and sit down with me and walk me through that process. But until those things happen, it's going to be just a slow crawl. And if you're in technology, like you are, Ian, you're highly in the area of technology, then the adoption seems late for you. Probably it's like, why is not everybody else understanding how these things can help and how they can be so useful for you in different ways. But I think when we start getting past that, the sacred words of wallet and digitization and and a metaverse, those things that sound so gamey and so uninteresting is what I'm getting at. Either the words sound uninteresting or they sound very invasion of privacy. So but I think that it's going to happen. It's happened with me, so I'm super confident of it. It just we don't know how fast the process is going to be.
Yeah.
This all just makes me think about the dilemma of adoption. The dilemma of adoption. It's so difficult to be like, okay, I see that this thing, and this is also after you acknowledge that it's useful. I see that this thing is useful. There, great. You understand why crypto or Web3 is so useful. Great, good for you. But now, the dilemma of adoption. It gets really difficult to be like, okay, I'm going to make that sacrifice. Just like Jesse was saying at base. I'm going to make that sacrifice and decide to go and spend my energy and my time and maybe my money to try and push forward to this future that I know is going to be a good idea, but is not yet here. Yeah, if everybody used crypto and everybody just took all their money out of the bank account, then we'd all just be perfect. Yeah, but if everybody was perfect, then yeah, humanity. And so it makes it so it's really hard to get things to happen like this because it brings up that thought of, well, I don't want to do it because someone else isn't going to do it. We need everybody to do it for it to actually work, but no one else is doing it now. And so then it's really difficult to get things to happen. And so instead of just sitting here and talking about it, what I want to do is I want to ask you guys, how can we make it so that this dilemma of adoption is not so difficult to get over, and that we can just bring this adoption to be something that becomes easy and that it seems simple and that we're able to get over it?
Yeah, your little rant, Ian, kind of spoke to me. I've always kind of been like, we read that story about the Israelites. They were oppressed. They were slaves. Then they're in the desert, stupid Israelites. Why do you want to go back to Israel? But, I've been back and forth about crypto and decentralization, and like, oh, I never thought I was the guy that's wanted to go back to slavery. Made me look at it a different way. And I think the application is, like Danny and Malachi touched on, the technology is early. It's going to be there when it's there, and people will come over when it's smooth and easy. But for me and for you, for Attention Live, Beachside Tech Talk, am I called to be a person who just waits till it's built? Are we jumping in and building it? And if we're jumping in and building it, that's different. Maybe that's what the key with the Israelites too. Like God wanted them to build another system, and it wasn't just about them. That's a different conversation. And, if we're wanting to build it, then you got to jump in and you've got to face these things, and you've got to watch the volatility, and you got to be up, and then you got to be down, and then you got to endure the trough of, desolation before you get over to the other side. So, yeah, that's a wake-up call.
Nigel, what do you think about getting over the adoption problem?
I'm going to come in super spicy.
Ooh, yay.
Spicy.
Think about the word adoption and what that means as far as, what the average person understands. How many people are we adopting in versus trying to market to, trying to get it one?
No.
How much of that are we doing?
What are you trying to adopt, though, Nigel? Are you trying to adopt a concept,
correct,
an idea, a product,
a culture?
A culture, yeah. So it's kind of starting. Let's start with what is it you're trying to
Once you
adopt?
acknowledge that almost everything is culture based, then things become a little bit simpler. I think that can.
And the question is, are we doing that? So I think part of it starts with understanding there is no easy, although we do complicate things more than we need to. You look at this show, there's 5 humans in this room, and I'll die on this hill. That's not easy. That took effort. It took time.
It took cooperation.
It took repeated. Yeah, of course, cooperation. Thank you, Danny.
So
this is what I'm saying.
This is where you're
to set up StreamYard, all these other things.
Patience.
But we're thank you, Ted. Patience.
Patience with Ted specifically.
And patience of Ted to bite his
sarcasm.
Not interrupt.
Wow.
But my point in all of this is we have this tendency, especially with marketing, to make everything look easy and not challenge ourselves and not even acknowledge what's being done. There's a lot going on, and we want to make it sound simple. But when the rubber meets the road and the truly have to take shape, are we building more walls than bridges? Because when the person you just marketed to saying, oh, it's easy. And they go and they're like, I don't understand what's going on. Now it's not so easy. Now the person is discouraged, but you didn't plan for that. You didn't work through the process of that adoption. So what I would challenge each of us to do is to go take someone by the hand and adopt them into the technology. Make sure they understand how to use it by virtue of them repeating back what you said, not you or me saying, I told you 1,000 times, and they haven't heard you once. So it's this kind of adoption of culture that I think is going to make all the difference. Because if you want to do it, just like the 5 of us, 6 of us are here, that took work, but now we're here. And each day it gets a little bit better. We get a little bit more efficient because it's reps and sets. How much of that are we actually doing in the space versus just market, give me your wallet, let me drop something for you, it's easy. Not as helpful and not as practical. And then on top, the last thing I'll leave with is this. The best thing we could do is be the example. Because leadership by example is it. More is caught than is taught. You can tell people a lot of stuff, but if they see you doing it and then ask and become curious, we have a better chance of it being adopted.
I had this thought like the other day of me going up to put myself in the shoes of like the guy under some massive musician. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be really blunt with this. There's this thing that's about to happen. I don't know if it's in 10 years or if it's 1 year or if it's in 5 years, whatever it is, but it's happening. Do you want to open the Pandora's box? It's going to be difficult right now, but you're going to be glad you did it because you'll be early. Do you want me to talk about this with you? Or do you want to just keep doing what you're doing? And that's what we all have to acknowledge and think about.
We'll be back again in just a moment. Thank you so much for being with us. All right. Hello, Internet. We're still with you. We had a 3.5 minute break, but I thought I would just hang out and talk with the bros because it's not that long of a break. Guys, for this last segment, I want to talk about when change comes to people around us, especially positive change, and how, and, kind of the importance of maintaining a positive response. So for instance, an example might be somebody gets into cryptocurrency and they bought Bitcoin when it was pennies and now they're super wealthy. Like, how do we respond to the change in their life in a way that is not envious and, or even worse, like, that they don't deserve that, but instead is like life-giving energy, oh, that's great for them. I hope that happens for me too. So I want to talk about change in people around us. Let's say AI. Maybe there's a kid that Malachi knows as an example. I don't know if this is true, that now is, making 6 figures a year playing around with AI as a 16-year-old. And Malachi is like, okay, wow, what a crazy change. That kid was a knucklehead in junior high. Now that kid's like wealthy, just bought a brand new truck and, is helping pay rent because his parents need what. And it's like, is Malachi's response good for them? Or is Malachi's response, well, they don't deserve that. So what I want to talk about is a change in people around us, how we manage our composure, how we communicate with them when good things happen. And as you might imagine, I'm going to start with a story. because I love telling stories. So I'll open up with a story in a minute and a half, and then we can dive into that last segment of the conversation. Web 350, if you're still on, Nigel said, true support and community is so underrated, especially during periods of change. Based on your comment, the frontier can be lonely and even unsafe. It's important to have friends when you explore new territories. And we were very glad to be by your side, exploring the new territory that Coinbase and the base community has been creating, and being at On-Chain Summit with you. So if you're listening in, thanks for the comment. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to the next time we get to have friendly collaboration together. Yes. Any other thoughts for the final minute before we get ready to rock and roll again?
Change is humanity.
Change is humanity. Well, that's true. That's one thing we can count on. Everything changes. One thing's for sure. We never stay in the same place. We only go up or down. It's been said, the fork in the road is not left or right. It's up or down. That's the fork in the road. Every decision we make is not a decision of, do I want to go left or right? It's, do I want to go high and take the hard road higher, or do I want to go low and take the easy path lower? That is the fork in the road that we should face moment by moment by moment, because humans, what we can guarantee that we're going to experience is change. Okay, we're going to go live in just a moment, but if you guys want to say anything else, now's the time.
Awesome. For your story, Ian.
Oh yeah. I hope you like it. I'm still thinking about which one to give.
Follow the biblical thing.
I'm so prepared for this one.
There you go, Joshua. You went to Moses, now it's Joshua.
All right, let's see what happens.
That's it right there. That's got to be it right.
For those that have Amazon Prime, you may have recently seen a new series called The House of David. The House of David is the story of a shepherd boy. From what we can gather, it seems that this shepherd boy had some family issues from birth. Looks like his dad, Jesse, maybe had done some naughty things that caused a little old David to be born. Now, what I want to talk about is when great change happens for people around us. And obviously, a lot of great change has happened because of technology. People have made a lot of money from Bitcoin. People have gotten much better jobs from AI. And how do we interact with people that have positive change in their life? So back to the story of David. David's a little shepherd boy. Apparently, he killed a bear. He killed a lion protecting the sheep. When Samuel, who was, I guess, the prophet, I'm not sure how, the press secretary,
chosen by God.
Yeah. He's the press secretary chosen by God, kind of given the news of the day. He goes to the current king, Saul, and says, "You're out." And there's a new king that will be crowned. And that, of course, from the story you can find out, is this little boy David, Jesse's son. Now, when Samuel goes to Jesse's house and says, "Bring your sons before me, I want to see them," Jesse chose not to have David there. All the other brothers were there except for David. When David is called because Samuel says to Jesse the father, "None of these kids are the person I'm looking for." They call David over, and then Samuel says, "This is the one," and he breaks open the oil and pours the oil on David's head and basically declares before all of David's brothers and his father, "This is the next king of Israel." And the way that it appears he was treated by his brothers and his father was not an encouraging way. His father and brothers, not just based on the TV show, but if you look through the sacred scriptures and the stories that we find in First Chronicles and First Kings and Samuel, you find, this is a very strange situation where no one in David's family appeared to believe in him, that he was going to be this great king and leader. No one was really happy for him. They would mock him. They would say things to him, like when he shows up on the battlefield to bring his brothers food, "What are you doing here? What's your point of being here?" And it just seemed like people were against him. He slays Goliath. And that's where the story ends on Amazon Prime. But if you read the story, he slays Goliath and he becomes the musician for the current king, Saul. And of course, Saul loves that David killed Goliath. Of course, Saul loves that David is this amazing musician that can kind of soothe his soul. But Saul doesn't celebrate that David is going to be the next king. So from the top down, David dealt with the current king, throwing spears at him, trying to kill him so he won't become the king. David's father, Jesse, not believing in him, not even having David show up to meet Samuel, and then not standing by him, at least from what we understand. David's brothers ridiculing him, mocking him, looking poorly upon him. And it seems as though the people around David's life were not celebratory of the change that was happening in his life. Rather than celebrate this new change for the little shepherd boy David, they would find ways to poke, ridicule, mock, slander, and cause emotional hardship to him. The reason I bring this story of David up is I'm on a roll. I talked to Abraham and Moses, so I have to bring another Bible story up. No, the real reason I brought the story of David up is that this is an example of what's happening in the world today. There are people around us that are having really, really wonderful change because of technology. There are individuals, there are institutions, there are communities that are radically benefiting from these changes. I find that humans, I was just saying earlier, fork in the road is not left or right. A fork in the road is up and down. So to go up is the hard path that elevates your life. To go down is the easy path that is not good for you. Therefore, when there's wonderful change around us, and somebody made $1 million off Bitcoin, somebody got, makes 5 times more money because of AI, somebody's business is exploding because of robotics. When wonderful, positive change happens for others around us, and we don't participate, but we're viewing it, we're spectators of sorts. It seems to me that the easy path is one of quiet or out loud slander, ridicule, gossip, not standing by them and behind them, but rather saying they don't deserve it. That's not right. They must have done something illegal, illicit, immoral to get that good thing that just happened to them. And it is the easy path down the hill that's not good for your soul. Or there's the more challenging path going up the hill in this fork in the road, where you see somebody benefit greatly, you see change in their life, and you say to yourself, or hopefully you say out loud, yes for you. I'm so glad there's grace in your life. I'm so thankful to watch the wind in your sails. I am for you. I am for this change. I celebrate the good. I celebrate that you won the lottery of AI, the lottery of crypto, the lottery of robotics. I celebrate this wonderful change in your life. May it happen for me as well. But regardless, I celebrate it's happening for you. And this is the thing I want to close our talk out with right now for the last 15 minutes. I want to talk about how we deal with positive change that happens in other people's lives, and how we respond and why we respond that way and the way that we would like to respond. So who'd like to jump in and springboard off that story?
I love hearing you talk like that. It makes me so happy. It's something that I think Nigel, the absolute gratitude champion,
has taught me. This is easy for
I'm so thankful for you, Nigel. Like, really, you are so
for himself and everybody around.
Amazing.
Hot potato. Here it comes.
Here comes the hot potato.
Nigel, you have done so well at helping me enjoy this year so much more. If I didn't start this radio show and was with you here, I don't think I would have asked nearly as many questions as I have throughout my life, especially in school, or probably gotten to engage with AI as much as I have, or gotten to actually just sit down and be like, okay, I love my life. Let's go. Thank you. Like, you have shown me so many of these amazing things, and I'm just so thankful for you, Nigel. You're such a grace to my life, and I imagine everyone else's.
I am so grateful for those words. And I literally was talking to your Dad yet about how excited I am for you in particular, because I think there's a lot of great things coming your way.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. And to your point, gratitude is where, and I don't say that to be funny. I remember my mom telling me on more than one occasion, don't envy anyone because you have no idea what they did to get what they have. And to add to that, I think when we're not thinking about our own unique promise of value, our own special path that the Almighty gave us, that has prepared for us, we get distracted by someone else's path. And we're looking for validation in humans that God already gave us. And that's where I feel like we end up going wrong. You you have a particular purpose, a particular path, a particular gift that you were sent here to provide at this particular time. I don't see how you could be distracted by what someone else has or doesn't have. I just don't see it. Again, not saying it's easy, but if you start with that, I think it puts you in a better position. Additionally, if you open yourself up to what you could learn from that experience, so many times we neglect to have conversations because we're too busy judging and measuring that we're opportunity. I know for me personally, I only did as well as I did because someone told me that that was possible. And that may sound simple, but it's the truth. If you don't know something is possible,
how can you go for it?
Any effort towards it. But it's like when somebody breaks a world record and then a whole bunch of people do it afterwards. It's like, okay, well, now I know it's possible. You know, I don't have to chart any new territory. I just have to go get after it. So that's what I think.
Isn't that an interesting kind of predicament? It's like, yeah, the world record was way shorter, man. You could have just done it then. But now you saw someone else do it. Now you have the motivation. Now you have the motivation. Our motives as people are the really only thing that affect us. I feel like I recently have started reading the book Never Negotiate or Never Split the Difference.
Chris.
And the most biggest takeaway I've ever taken from it is that empathy is so important. That doesn't mean always agreeing with someone or always trying to think from their perspective. It just means understanding their emotions and understanding their perspective. Understanding how they feel and why they are doing what they're doing. It makes it so that it becomes so much more human and it becomes so much easier to just communicate with someone. And it doesn't have to be so much of an argument having a conversation. It should be a conversation. And I feel like that's why I've realized and why I've taken so much value from this show in particular, and also just many of the conversations that I've had in recent time because of these different things that I've learned from you guys and from that book and from everywhere else in my life.
I do find it interesting that, you know, I'm constantly surrounded by some of the most extreme changes in fellow entrepreneurs' lives. So I can't even tell you how many times I've had a fellow entrepreneur in the AI or Web3 industry that starts off enthusiastic, just like all of us, going to make this thing happen. They hit that trough of disillusionment after the peak excitement wears off and they want to quit. I've had so many of them turn to me and like, hey, dude, do you know anything I could do? Do you have any consulting gigs I could pick up? I don't think this is going to work. I wasted my life. I built a product nobody wants. Nobody wants to work for me. I'm not a good leader. I'm this, I'm that. I'm these bad things. I'm not these good things. And they, in a sense, lean on me and kind of share their woe is me moment. And I try to encourage them. Only for 3 months later or 2 years later, for their company to become a multi-billion-dollar company. And I look at those moments and I'm like, okay, the enthusiasm was there, just like for many entrepreneurs. They hit that trough of disillusionment. They want to quit. They want to escape. They want to get out, anything. And then something changes. The market responds and things go right. And now all of a sudden they are a $1 billion or even a $10 billion valued company. And it's interesting to have like a view, that's kind of like where you know more than what the news tells you, right? The news just tells you about the overnight success, but no, that person was ready to give up 3 months ago. Like they wanted to quit.
No overnight success,
There's
bro.
No
you know more than anyone I know. It was a 7.5 year overnight success.
Exactly.
That's what it was.
That's right.
Of grueling heartache and pain and misery, melancholy, black box, isolation.
It doesn't look like a hockey
No one
stick.
understands
like
what you mean.
L.
You're the only one who actually, it's your project, it's your company.
Yeah.
You're the only one who's staying up at nights and still not getting traction and still not going there, and you're doing everything right. And why is it not working? Why is the adoption not happening? Why are people not joining into this idea that I have? It's help. What are you all doing? I'm helping you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why can't you not see that the way that I do? And hey, welcome to the land of entrepreneurism, right? It's like the guy who, unfortunately, maybe I shouldn't start there. I'll do it. Who's in a wheelchair. All he wants to do is walk.
Right.
The dude, the dude who only walks, all he wants to do is to learn how to jog.
Mm.
The jogger, man, he sees out jogging. He sees the dude on the one wheel, the bicycle. I gotta have. I wish I got to get that bicycle. It's my next step. Never even knowing that the bicycle led into, the car, to the sport car, to the plane.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's so easy as a human to want to envy the change. Envy that change that's ahead of us when we don't realize the change that is, in a sense, behind us. Going on those steps from wheelchair to walking to jogging.
You got to take your hat off to an entrepreneur, anyone who's made it, and then even more so to all of the other 90% who didn't.
Yeah.
You just, from your heart of hearts, man, you're not going to find someone who's so persistent in what their thought process is. They just believe in that thing. And we'll see.
But before we were talking about going back to slavery.
Don't do that.
And I think about a 9 to 5. Some people demonize a 9 to 5 job until they become an entrepreneur, until they have to pay workers' comp and deal with all the insurance and all the other things that are on the other side.
I fantasize about a 9 to 5. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
Yeah.
Oh man, that looks so awesome.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, you don't realize what you have until you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Funny thing is also in anything that you do have, you never, I don't want to say never, you just don't take the time and appreciate what you do have enough. It's enough. You have enough. Perfect. And then apparently you don't, if you have enough, you really don't need anything else.
Yeah.
So there you have that. But I think we're talking about, drive and entrepreneurialism is something that's kind of different.
Yeah.
We're leaving that philosophical thing and going into that driving world of building something that people are going to use or people are going to like. And
there's so much change that's coming in the world soon.
I think one thing that we have to ask on this topic of positive change for other people, that how do we respond to it, is do we believe in destiny? I think that definitely has something to do with kind of our response. Do we believe that we are able to manifest something for ourselves? Do we think they manifested it or someone manifested it in their life? Where do we stand on kind of those issues? there's a story that comes to mind, and I'll say this, and then we'll kind of come to a close in a moment. In the TV show The Chosen, which also is on Prime now, Jesus sends out his 12 followers 2 by 2 to go do the stuff he was doing. He said, heal the sick, tell people the good news, raise the dead, all kinds of craziness. So one of the characters that pulls Jesus aside is this guy named Little James. And he has a limp, and he is impaired physically. And he basically has this conversation with Jesus like, so you want me to go heal the sick? Have you not noticed? I'm like super, super sick. I'm in excruciating pain all the time.
Little James, right?
Little James.
Yeah.
And he's crying, and Jesus says, it's not outside of God's will for you to be healed. Do you want to be healed? And James kind of looks at him like, well, shouldn't I want to be healed? Yeah. And he doesn't say it outright. And Jesus says, it's not outside God's will for you to be healed. It's just so powerful that you have this sickness, yet you are used to bring health to other people. Yeah. And that this is a special invitation on your life that you get to be part of other people's positive change, even though you're not facing it yourself. So quite a complicated idea. I watched it a few times, the show, to try to grapple with the storytellers were trying to say. But I will say that it is not uncommon for people to be part of other people's success and not participate in it. It has not been an uncommon thing for me to be an integral part of other people's success, and I have no personal participation in it. And then I have to sit there and be like, wow, I was a part of their success. And yet I have no part in it. And how do I want to respond? Do I want to celebrate it? Or does that make, so there's a tension. There's so much tension with change and change in other people's lives. We are coming against the top of the hour. Very grateful for all those that are here with us for Beachside Tech Talk. We will be back again tomorrow at the same time here at 1340 a.m. KOMY, the home of Schoolhouse Radio. And until then, peace to all of you. All right, party people, that's it. We're done. What a show. Nigel, I love you. Oh, wait, hold on. I got you. There we go. Now I can hear you.
More.
Great show. And we'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll have a different topic. We'll go back to our regular programming next week. I think tomorrow we talked about
Skills and drills.
skills and drills. I think the next 2 days one day we'll do leadership, one day we'll do identity. I'm pretty excited about talking about identity, the impact that technology is playing upon our identity, and leadership.
The lemming effect?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do the lemming effect.
The lemming effect.
All right. Everyone watching on the internets, the World Wide Web Wonderland, we're loving you right now. Peace, everybody.